Ready? We will call our Monday, March 13, 2023 Hamblen County Legislative Body Committee meetings to order. And before we get started, Commissioners, let's first turn on your mics. And second to that, let's remind each other of our how we're going to operate, that when a chairman has the floor, if anybody needs to speak, we'll first get a motion, we'll get a second, and then please address the chairman if you need to address. Does that make sense? Everybody good? We're going to try to follow those rules. We've got a little lax last couple of meetings, so we'll try to do that. And to the folks in the gallery, we do have copies of new public comment guidelines. If you do not, they're at the rear of the room if you need this. Does anybody need it? That said, we will get started. Chairman Horner of the Justice Center Public Safety Committee, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll call the Justice Center Public Safety Committee to order. Anyone wishing to address may do so at this time. Seeing none. Item 4A, Justice Center Project, Tony Pettit. He's running a little late, so we'll come back to him. Item 4B, proposal to finish the third courtroom, County Mayor Bill Britton.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. What I want to present to you this afternoon is just a concept and an idea that we had considered during the original design of the Justice Center building and then eliminated it or delayed it because of our cost overruns. And so I want to bring it back before you and show you what we want to propose and how to pay for it. So what we want to show today is the build out of the third courtroom in the Justice Wing of the Justice Center. In the original design, there were three courtrooms, one for the circuit judges, that would be Judge Duggar, Judge Boniface, Judge Phillips, and that would be for the traveling judges, so to speak, that run the circuit. And then that's the juried courtroom. That's the third courtroom C, we'll call it. Then there was a courtroom for Judge Collins and for General Sessions Division 1. And then there was the first courtroom, when you go down the hallway, was going to be the courtroom for Juvenile and General Sessions Division 2. Along with that courtroom, there was a staging area or a waiting room next to it for like juvenile court cases where you can only hear one case and the persons involved in that case are the only ones that can be in that courtroom. So we had everybody else to be in this waiting room. So what you'll see in what's on your screen is the areas that are, it's kind of like an orange color. Those are the areas that were shelled in because trying to reduce the cost of the project, and that is the first courtroom, that waiting area, and then at the top of the diagram is a small office hearing room that we had put in the plan for arraignment and also for a judge's office. And so those were the three areas that were shelled in during the redesign. And so those are the areas that we want you to consider to put back into the project. In this diagram, the courtroom at the center of the picture is the courtroom that we want to finish, is the one that is shelled in. Is today it's shelled in. So that's the courtroom we want to add to the project. And then the red area is the waiting area that we were talking about. And in the proposal, that would continue to be shelled in. But what we've done with this courtroom and in the proposal to finish this courtroom in discussions with Judge Collins and Judge Simkowski is this courtroom would be the one for juvenile court and for general sessions 2, which is a lot of collections happen in general sessions 2 and among other cases as well. But they don't require a lot of public seating. So our thought on this is that we would split this space in half. Originally, it was a full courtroom, and it wasn't a juried courtroom, but it was a full courtroom with benches all the way to the back. But the idea is we'd have the court space in the front with the judges and all the litigants and some public seating there for the folks who are involved in the juvenile court cases and in the small claims court cases. And then behind that wall would be the waiting area, the staging area, and that's where the folks in the other juvenile court cases would be waiting. We would have let's say a screen that would show what cases are next, and so the folks would know when they would be called. And then in the corner at the entrance to that waiting area in the corner are meeting rooms for attorneys and their clients. And so that was in the original plan, and we've kept those. The red area is the space, the waiting space that'll continue to be shelled in. So that's the concept, is to split that third courtroom, split it in half, waiting room and then court area, and then continue to shell the waiting area. Now, at the far east end of the hallway, you enter the justice area of the new building. You go down this long hallway. The courtrooms are on your left. The clerk's office is on your right as you go down the hallway. At the end of the hallway, there is an area that we put in the redesign, and it was for a small hearing room / office space. The hearing room would be used for arraignments. If Judge Collins wanted his a magistrate to arraign some folks on charges in video arraignment, because the prisoners would have the video screens where they're being held. So they could do that video arraignment there, and then he could, in his courtroom, get on with his docket. And then, or it could be used as the office space for the traveling judge. And so it could be, it's a dual purpose type space. Right now it's planned to be shelled in, and in this proposal, we would finish that space. It would be very simple. And so that's part of this proposal. Now, here are some pros and cons. And as far as pros go, this by finishing out this third courtroom makes us more efficient. And the only reason that in the redesign that we went to shelling in those spaces was to reduce the cost of the project. That was the reason. And then we would use the existing Justice Center as a juvenile justice center, so to speak, where Judge Simkowski would hold his court back where Judge Duggar does now. And then juvenile court services is in the existing building. But the only reason that we shelled those spaces in the redesign was to save money. So what this change does is, and this proposal does, is makes our operations more efficient. One is it reduces public confusion. Where do I go? And which building do I go to? And so we'll have the security folks at the front, at the entrance, can tell folks you go to courtroom A, B, and C, because all the courtrooms will be together down the same hallway. The clerk's office, Teresa West's office, and the clerk for each one of those courts will be across the hall rather than another building. Because for General Sessions Division 2 and Juvenile, Teresa's office is the clerk for those courts, and they would have to take files over to the existing Justice Center if Judge Simkowski was still over there. So it makes it more efficient for the clerk's office. For safety of the sheriff's department and the clerk staff as well, with the movement of prisoners. Because from time to time in juvenile court, you may have some parents who are involved in a juvenile proceeding who have to be brought from jail to court. So they would just be brought from the new jail up the elevators into the secure area until the case is called, and then taken into the juvenile court area. So it's safer for the sheriff's department staff and the clerk staff. It separates the prisoners from the public. The General Sessions judges, they also swap cases from time to time when they have a conflict, an ethical conflict. And so Judge Simkowski will hear a case that may be on Judge Collins's docket or vice versa. And so they're just right next to each other, and they can swap courtrooms when they need to. This is one of the major long-term reasons to support this. And this is the elimination, not necessarily elimination, that may be a poor choice of words, but reduction, long-term reduction of security costs. The idea is that if we had Judge Simkowski's courtroom in the existing building, we would have to staff the entrance to that building with security, with courtroom security folks. So we would have that building, have courtroom security folks at the entrance, the new building, and then this building here. So you'd have 3 buildings that we would have to have security folks for. With this build out, we would only have to have 2. We would reduce and pretty much eliminate the courtroom security folks needed for the existing Justice Center. We would have a buzz-in system, much like as what is at the schools, where with a video camera, where the clerical staff at the sheriff's department can buzz people into the building when they see them, and they present why they're there, and they can buzz them into the building. And then on the juvenile court services side, where on this side of the existing Justice Center is a doorway into the building right outside the juvenile court services office, is we would have a video camera there, a intercom system there, and folks who need to see Cindy and her staff then would buzz in there, and staff there in the juvenile court services office would buzz the person in, and with a magnetic lock on the door, and they would go in and do business with the juvenile court services office. So we would be able to eliminate up to 3 positions by not having to have security at the existing Justice Center. Another major argument for this is by moving and building out this courtroom and Judge Simkowski being in the new building, is it gives the Sheriff's Department more space. In the alignment with Judge Simkowski having the back courtroom where Judge Duggar is now, Judge Collins's courtroom would become the waiting area, the staging area for juvenile court. So with this plan, that space can go to the Sheriff's Department, as well as the clerk space goes to the Sheriff's Department. So they're able to spread out and have more space to operate. And that was one of the needs, and one of the space studies, one of the first ones done, I think by Carter Goebel Lee back in 2014, it talked about the need for more space for the Sheriff's Department. So this accommodates that need. And then also, one of the things in the redesign that we failed to do is we failed to recognize that we were using we were going to continue to use the existing Justice Center for public access, and the public would go to court in that building, in that we needed to keep the Circle Drive that is at the entrance to that building. And in the current design, the Circle Drive is gone. So we would have to add the Circle Drive to it, and that we've estimated that at about $52,000. So we would avoid that. And the only con that I've been presented in talking to the different departments is that the Juvenile Court Services Office would be in a different building than their court, which is very true, and it would be, but that juvenile court now comes here in this room, and this is where juvenile court is held, in this courtroom now. So it'd be a shorter distance for Cindy and her staff, but it's still a different room. Okay, the cost of this project, now the room that's in yellow is the third courtroom. The estimate we have from Mosley is about $1.3 million to finish that room out. The office or the hearing room that I showed you before in the other drawing is about $250,000. So for an estimated cost of about $1.5 million would be what it would cost to do that. Now, we pay for it this way, is we've earned, you guys made a great decision when you issued those bonds early, when you issued the big bonds or the big issue of the $97 million instead of staggering it over time. One is because we got a better interest rate on the bonds before we issued them, before the interest rates really started climbing. We sold them at a premium, and then we've been able to hold the money and earn interest on it as well. And so we've earned to date, that has been deposited in the bank, $1.3 million in interest. That's through the month of February. That's in the bank. We've got it. And then we estimate by the end of the end of July, we will have earned about $2 million in interest. And so the money is available to do this project. So that's how we would pay for it. And then so the next step is if you approve going forward with this concept, then we would have Mosley prepare the construction plans. They're mostly already done. There just have to be a tweak to that third courtroom because of dividing it in half. And then get a cost proposal from Blaine after we submit the construction plans to them, and then present that change order to the commission. But that's the proposal. So I guess in a nutshell is we're asking you to approve moving forward with finishing the third courtroom for the reasons that I stated, for a cost of about $1.5 million, and we have, or will have, in a couple of months, the money in hand to do that renovation or that addition. I've got the judges here to answer any questions you may have, or I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What did you say that cost would be? I'm sorry, I missed that.
$1,549,574.
So,
Chairman, should
Address
we?
the chair, please.
Yeah, work through the chairman, please. Do we want to go ahead and take a motion on this in a second and then open discussion, or
If there's any questions before.
go ahead?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so, on the 5 days a week, you guys, you use all the courtrooms. All the courtrooms will be busy, the A and B, the 1 and 2. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Now, Peggy, not every single day. Now, Judge Collins, every single day.
Okay.
All right, in the juried courtroom where the circuit judges are, may not be every single day, but it's 3 to 4 days a week.
What happens here?
Chancery Court will stay here.
Okay.
Chancery Court will stay here. This will become a meeting room, like county commission meeting, planning commission, that kind of thing. And oh, shoot, there's one other legal, child support hearing.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, question. Does
Yes.
that mean we have nothing to worry about as far as a property tax increase that I'm hearing rumors about? Will this take care of that? I didn't clarify my question, sir. I apologize. From what you're telling me, you are pretty sure you will have the money without having to look at other aspects of income?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? I hear a motion to go ahead with this.
Motion to approve and go ahead with the drawings and construction of the third courtroom.
I have a motion. I hear a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
We didn't open
Ayes
up
have it.
discussion, but good.
All right. Item 4A, Tony Pettit, Justice Center project update.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late. Want to give you an update. Heard racket over there as you came into the courtroom today. That's a good sign. We got still iron workers up there screwing down deck, metal deck. Run through the financials real quick. Current contract amount is $2,895,189.16. Completed and stored to date at the end of February, $37,335,729.16. Of that leaves a balance of $55,559,460 to go. The material stored of that $37 million is $15,627,550. Let me say that again, $15,627,550, and that's 41% of your completed store to date is stored materials. Okay. Of the total, it's 16.82% of your total. There's a tour that happened last week of the jail staff toured level 1 and saw the jail cells put in place, the slab on deck there. That continues to go on. Right now they're moving into the second level of the tower and screwing the metal deck down, and they're scheduled to keep going. And you'll see steel go up, concrete placed, and then the pre-manufactured cells out of Baldwin, Georgia get shipped in and carted in place. Site work continues. They're working on the site retaining walls. And per the latest CPM schedule, May 9th, 2024 is substantial completion. Any questions about what you're seeing or hearing or what I said?
Sounds good.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes,
I
sir.
might, upon reviewing this in my mind, when I made the motion earlier, I only stated the third courtroom, but to clarify, I think we need to amend that to third courtroom and the additional office space on the, I guess that would be the east side, wouldn't it, Mayor? On the east side. So if we could back up and revisit that, I will make that motion that it stated the third courtroom and the additional office space.
So we have the amendment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. Item 4C, the new jail construction site. Mayor Britton.
You mentioned, we did have a tour last week for jail staff and the jail command staff. The administration went through the building and, along with the sheriff and chief deputy. I'm trying to schedule one for the county commission, another tour, probably may not be next week, but the week after, depending on the weather. They're pouring concrete next week on the second floor, and so our access is relatively limited next week. So the tours are at noon because that's when the construction crews are off-site at lunch, and we have about a 30-minute window, 30 to 45-minute window that we can do the tour. So I'll be contacting, or Trish will be contacting you in the next couple of weeks to schedule a tour so you can walk through the areas.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Horner. We will now call into order, our Chairman Hahn, you are recognized.
Call to order the Finance Committee. Anyone wishing to speak may do so at this time. Okay, see none, so we'll move on. In our recurring business, you can look over your expenditure reports for February and the monthly checks also for February. And those are in your packets, and you can look those over at your leisure. Under new business, 5A, Lincoln Elementary School project presentation. Mr. Bunch, not here.
He's with us.
Mr. Clement?
Mr. Clement.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Vaughn, and Chairman Cutshall. Mr. Bunch had a prior commitment today. We're grateful he can't be here to speak. First of all, I want to thank you for your support in this project and what you're doing to help education in Hamblen County. I'm going to bring you up to date on where we are with the bids, the contract, and then I'm going to ask the Finance Director, Ms. Anderson, to bring you up on the financing details. And after that, if you have any questions for either one of us, we'll try to answer. We did bid the project. We had 3 bids. The low bid on the project was Merit Construction. It's a 470-day contract. Hopefully, if we can get our contract signed, this is something I hope we can have be in that building in August of 2024. Our attorneys are working on the contract as we speak today to get the language to where it's acceptable to both parties. So the 700 student building. Currently at Lincoln Elementary, we have approximately 550 students. So we have room for growth, approximately 150 students. That gives us opportunity if we do have overcrowded situations in other school districts that we could potentially look at rezoning if we need to. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Antrican, and she's going to talk about the financing for the project and where we are today with that.
So, just a quick update. With the $22 million in bonds provided by County Commission and the $5.4 million that was dedicated from our ESSER 3 program, federal money, we had a total working budget of $27.4 million. Mr. Clement talked about the bids that came in, and I think you have a copy in your packet. The $26.4 million was the low bid from Merit Construction, which would have left us $1 million to work with. However, we had spent $4.1 million of the ESSER money for land acquisition, site preparation, architectural fees, fire marshal, traffic studies, and geotechnical testing, all necessary items for the project, which that left us with a deficit of $3.1 million. We also estimate we'll need about $1 million for furniture and technology for the building. That brings us to a $4.1 million deficit. The Board of Education and the State of Tennessee approve an amendment to our ESSER 3 application to move the $5 million that we had earmarked for Lincoln Middle's HVAC program over into the Lincoln Elementary project. And we plan to work the Lincoln Middle HVAC plan into a long-term HVAC plan for the district at a later time. That $5 million with the $4.1 million deficit brings us to having about $900,000, which would be applied to the new access road for Lincoln Elementary. And I don't believe we have
The new access road, well, that, is the idea to have turn lanes added to Martin Luther King? Is that the idea?
We'd be adding a turn lane entrance and exit.
Okay.
What about, I know we talked a little bit about it before, about accessing 160. Will we have to use, coming off Martin Luther King onto 160?
Plan is now all traffic would exit back toward back toward the camp.
Okay. That's a dangerous intersection right there. Very good. Very good. Okay, do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Warner. Okay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 5B, Health Department Purchase Agreement with E911. Mayor Britton.
At your seat, there is in the packet, there was an initial version, or initial draft of the contract, and then at your seat was one with a couple of revisions in it, and so I'll be referring to that one. But what this document is, it is the document where the county and the Emergency Communication District agree for E911 to purchase our health department building on West Main Street for a total of $1,137,500, which is the match that we're required to provide for the health department construction project. In the terms, if you look on page 2, the closing would occur between now and the end of the fiscal year.
Excuse me, Mayor, 1 second, please. We have a recording device on the front row that we're going to ask that you put down, please, or, excuse me, ma'am, it just certainly did. You set me up for that, I apologize. You set me up. Continue, sir.
The closing would occur before the end of the fiscal year by June 30th of 2023. And then under the bold statements in item number 5, it just talks about after closing, the department will continue to operate without disruption. That's the health department will continue to operate without disruption of its schedule. Neither the county nor the department will make any structural changes to the building. That the ECD staff will have access to the building upon request. That the county will maintain its current insurance on the building as long as the health department is in it, and the county and the health department will be responsible for utilities for the building as long as the health department is in it, and then 911 shall be allowed to make changes to the premise which do not disrupt or impede the function of the department, which includes the placement of a communications tower. We have received a grant through Homeland Security to provide a communications tower for E911, and they will go ahead, because of the time constraints and the scheduling on the grant, go ahead and purchase the tower and install it outside of the health department building during this time. So that will take place during the time that this agreement is executed and the time that the 911 takes ownership of the building. Let's see. Mr. Capps, you want to address any issues?
No, it's just an unusual circumstance. Insurance may have to be changed because at closing, we will not any longer own the property. It will be owned by the Emergency Communications District. So that's the reason we put in there that insurance will be modified. We don't know exactly how that will happen until see how that plays out. Also added that those items in bold will survive the closing, which means at the closing of this transaction, when ECD gets their deed, these particular terms will survive. Typically, they would not, once the deed is exchanged. In this situation, those terms will survive, and the health department and the ECD will coexist as best they can under those requirements.
And we will, once, when this agreement is executed and we're paid by the ECD, those funds will go into the general fund where we use those funds to pay for the shopping center.
Do I hear a motion to accept?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion on this? Questions or comments? Mr. Richardson?
I have a question. Is there any provision, discussion that in the future, if they decide to leave that facility, that we would have the opportunity to purchase it back? Is
I
there
have
any-
not been involved. Chris, have you been involved in any discussion? I have not. But we could have that discussion if that's something you guys want us to.
We could probably put in there right of first refusal if they should either sell it or leave.
I think it would be, I mean, it's a government entity of sorts, and I think we should have the right to first refusal at least for that facility. It's worth, I think it's worth.
We could do that with a purchase and sale amendment, couldn't we? Excuse me, Chairman.
We could, we could amend the motion and with that suggestion be added, and we bring that back.
We'll amend the motion now for, we will call it a right of first refusal to the purchase agreement if they decide to sell, so we'll amend that motion. Do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman. to
And a
amend.
second?
Okay.
Ms. Howell, thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments, please? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5C, excuse me. Purchase of garbage truck for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Poole.
We just got those two 2023 garbage trucks. And the Worldwide, the same people we got these last two from, let us know that there's a slot that we could get in and get another one. And of course, I would propose that in this year's budget, but we can get out front of this thing and get a new truck by, they're telling me September, October. If we don't get in this slot now and wait till budget time and it's approved and we want to look at ordering it in July, we're looking at sometime in 2025 before we get the truck. if we get it then. That's what the production of these cab and chassis is like at this point. So they let us know we can get out in front of this thing, and we'd like to if you guys would see fit. And that's you know, the production is gone. They couldn't produce what was ordered this year, and next year it's going to be the same way. And more time goes by, and they get more behind, and it's going to be harder and harder to get a new truck. What we're running now with the regular fleet is we have these two new ones we've got, the 23s. We've got 2020, and we've got a 2018. That's 4 out of the 5 we need. And then what we do is we drop down to a truck that's 2015 that we just put this new engine in, and it's got a used bed on it. And we're about to have to start spending a lot of money on that bed. We'd like to move it to a spare status so we don't have to spend all that money on that bed. If we could get this new truck, then we would be in that position. And we'd have a pretty good spare fleet then for when we need to take the truck offline and do some maintenance, that type of thing. So I know it's a lot to consider. And the new quote for this truck that would be manufactured in this year is $242,000. And they were $200,000 when we bought these last two. So that's how quickly they're going up. So it'd be my recommendation we get in this slot and get a truck while we can.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
All right, do you want to take any questions with Barry first, or?
Oh.
We can do a motion. Let's do a motion.
Get her motion?
Yeah.
Let's get her motion.
I'll make that motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty, thank you.
Now discussion.
Now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do we have any questions for Mr. Poole? Go ahead.
Okay, I was, being in the slot doesn't mean we're buying it.
We commit to it if we get in the slot, yes. It'll mean we're buying it.
Because I'm pretty sure we're gonna say, goodness gracious, we've got too much trash out there, and the demolition guy needs to rent a bin, and the tree cutting people need to rent a bin and take it, and, because y'all are picking up everything.
Right.
If it gets to the edge of the road, everybody's good, except you guys. And there is, in my opinion, the need for the trucks that, a lot of people, a lot of businesses, I don't know, I'm just spitting this out here, but a lot of businesses.
We're going to address some of that later today. So
Okay.
Maybe we can alleviate some of exactly what you're talking about.
And Commissioner Howell, there is a difference in the debris truck and the garbage truck that he's talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I'm just making sure we're on the same page here.
Yes, sir, thank you for that, you're
Yes.
right.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Long?
What was the bid from the other companies like Kenworth and Peterbilt then?
Well,
In their time slot?
their time slot's worse than the Mac. This is for a Mac, and their time slot's further out than the Mac.
What's the price difference?
It's about, customarily, it's about $15,000. That's what it was last time we had two prices, one for the Kenworth and one for the Mac.
Did you get the prices on these from them?
Yes.
What was Kenworth's price?
Not this time, Rodney. The last time that we were talking about either model, that was the difference. But Kenworth is worse in terms of their meeting production schedules than the Mac is. So it'd be further out than the Mac. Of course, this is through Sourcewell, so we're getting the biggest discount we can get.
Is Sourcewell a co-op type
Yes.
agreement?
Yes.
So the price is the price?
Yes.
The other question I had was capital outlay. If we commit to it, when's our money due?
Well, that's not as a hurried situation as getting in the slot. We could budget it and have it ready after July 1st.
We're just looking at a commitment now.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Barry, could you please go over that one more time? We've got two new garbage trucks that are delivered, 2020,
23s.
two of those, one 2020, one 2018, and the 2015 has the new engine that you're wanting to place in reserve.
That's correct.
So what would be surplus then? Would there be something surplus in that?
Then we've got a 2001 model, a 2002, 2008 models, and two 2013s, and one 2014. Of course, all those trucks are giving us a lot of problem, but we can go ahead and start selling some of those off if we can get our everyday trucks in good shape in terms
Okay.
of, you know.
So reserve, how many do you normally have in reserve?
Well, we would just need 2 or 3 in reserve, so we can, if we can get in good shape with these 5 that we count on, then we can start selling some of these. Right now, with, of course, these two 23s have made a big difference, but if we can get one more in there, then we'll sell off 3 or 4 of them.
Okay, so that 2015 with a new engine, though, we expect it's got the old bed, but you expect it to be a good backup.
Should be good, yes. It should be a good spare. Now, the 14 model, we work on it quite a bit. 15 model, I say, it's the other one with the used bed. We got a bed in 2008, and then we ended up getting a new cabin chassis about 15. We put the old bed on, the old bed on it. We didn't get a new bed, so these beds are 2008 till now is what, 15 years old.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chairman.
We have any other questions for Mr. Poole? Okay, all in favor? I need a motion, please.
So we had a motion in a
Oh,
second.
we had the motion, so we'll vote now. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Poole. Item 5D, Employee Health Clinic Release Renewal. Mr. Britton.
Part of the master plan for the Oak Tree Plaza Shopping Center is to renovate about 9,000 square feet for county office space. And one of the spaces, about 5,000 square feet of it, would be for the employee health clinic. Right now, we partner with the city of Morristown and lease the space that is in the Straight Insurance Building. We've had the clinic there since we opened the doors. And so what this amendment number 3 is to the original lease. That is to extend the lease on that office space, that medical office space, until the end of 2024, when we anticipate that we'll be able to move into the shopping center space for the employee health clinic. So this gets us committed, and also the landlord committed to us staying in that space till the end of 2024. And by the way, the lease that we have right now expires in October, so we needed to do this year anyway.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Ivel, second?
Second.
Who was that?
Ronnie Long.
Mr. Long? Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Item 5C, a resolution to authorize a $2 submission fee for documents filed electronically in the Register of Deeds office in Hamblen County. Mr. Clausen.
I'm requesting the passage of a resolution that will trigger additional monies for the Hamblen County Registrar's Office. This is a user fee. It's not a tax. All of the $2 user fee would go into the general fund of Hamblen County. Right now, that amount would be between $7,000 and $10,000 a year. Authorized by TCA 8-21-1001, Section J. We are not currently taking that fee. That fee requires a 2/3 majority of the county commission to authorize that I do that. But I wanted to present that and get that because it is a user fee. Anyone that files a document electronically in the office would be subject to the $2 fee. At present time, I am not collecting anything on e-filed documents.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Doty, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clausen?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to address, you said 2/3 vote,
It takes a 2/3 vote in full commission to pass this resolution.
and I didn't see that, or I was just expecting simple majority, that's all. So you have that, you know that,
It's
okay.
it should be in the resolution.
All right, I missed it then, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'll make it sure that it's in there.
I see it now. I do. I see it. Okay, thank you. Secondary to that, on this $2 fee, can you estimate, just curious, is most transactions are probably electronic now? Or do you have,
The pandemic accelerated the e-file transactions. Prior to 2020, we didn't have very many at all. After 2020, 45% of our work is now e-file, and there'll be a day when it'll be all e-file. So
yes,
the pandemic really accelerated the technology. I've got the technology, it's ready to, I'm doing it now, I'm just not taking any authorized fees, according to CCA.
Are any other departments charging that?
Several registers are across the state. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, how many of them are doing that. But it's out there. We don't have to take it. We don't have to charge. It would take 2/3 from you guys to allow me to do that. But anyway, 7,000 to 10,000, it's going to increase. If I took it this year, it would have brought in about $7,500 in revenue. It's going to go up. There'll be a day when it'll be 20 to 25 to 30,000 in revenue easy, and more than that in the years to come.
Very good.
So,
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Clausen. Item 5F, a resolution authorizing Hamblen County to submit a 2023 grant application to expand and enhance substance use disorder treatment in adult treatment drug courts. Ms. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, I'm just asking permission to use funds from our current budget to hire Allard Consulting to write us a grant to submit to the Bureau of Justice of Assistance for additional funding for fiscal year '24 to expand the program. And it's a four-year award if we win 48 months, up to $250,000 a year. That's $1 million. It is, there was a correction made to the resolution. It is a 25% cash or in-kind match based on the cost of your total project or budget, and that is currently met with our current funding. So there wouldn't be any, with our current funding for fiscal year ending '23, there wouldn't be any additional funds being requested to meet that. It's a highly competitive, it is a federal grant, but we're being encouraged that it's well worth the money to spend it to try.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Mr. Long, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harville, do we have any questions for Ms. Knight?
Have you used this consulting firm before?
We did. It's the one the 501c used, the Recovery Support Services, to submit the grant.
Comfortable with them and their
Yeah.
success rate?
Yes, and Mr. Long, Mr. Hans got a copy of that grant that was submitted for the 501c and showed the quality of work they did.
Okay.
That's the primary work that the Allard Consulting does is for recovery courts.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else? Questions? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Knight.
Thank you.
Item 5G, a resolution authorizing Hamblen County to accept the contract for the Violent Crime Intervention Fund Grant in the amount of $177,361. Mr. Britton.
In this presentation, I'll need some help from the sheriff's staff, but want to compliment Ms. Green and the sheriff and his staff on their pursuit of grants for the operation and of the sheriff's department over the last 6 months. Today, you have 2 resolutions for acceptance of contracts for those grants. Now, the first grant, the Violent Crime Intervention Fund grant, we've been notified of the award. We don't have the grant contract, and it's still being put together by the state of Tennessee, and do we anticipate it pretty soon, right?
County Commission on the 23rd.
So the actual contract will be here by the 23rd, so that won't meet the 10-day rule, but we anticipate that we will have the contract then. This resolution does talk about what the grant is used for. And Michelle, would you want to give a few more details on what the grant for sheriff, one of you?
What we'll be using it for is some more spike strips for each of our officers to try to stop pursuits. Hydraulic rams for the school systems. I talked with Chief Overholt with the police department. He's trying to purchase some through a grant as well. These hydraulic rams will get us through the steel doors at the school system in case there's an emergency. Flashlights for the new, for our officers. Shields, I'm trying to put a ballistic shield per car. If they encounter something, they will each have a ballistic shield until SWAT team or whoever arrives. So we'll have one on each shift plus one to school system that they'll have access to as well. 3D scanner takes the temperature of the inmates and stuff as they come in. Will be purchased for this grant. Another drone that's a heat-seeking FLIR. We used it just recently on the 2 escaped prisoners out of Virginia. Marshtown Police Department's got one, we don't. We'll be purchasing one of those. Camera equipment and the money counter for our narcotics unit. That's just a small list of things that we're offering.
So those are the items that the grant will be used to purchase. We do anticipate to have the grant contract by County Commission Day, and as soon as we get it, we'll send it out for you to review.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Doty, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harville, with a second. Mr. Doty, have a question?
Is there any matching funds to this grant, Mayor?
No.
No matching funds. Great, thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 5H, a resolution authorizing Hamblen County to accept the contract for the epidemiology. I've said that 1,000 times, I wrote it down. And laboratory capacity, ELLC confinement facilities funding grant in the amount of $296,350. Mr. Mayor.
Chairman, do we have a contract on this one? Or is it
On this one, yes, the contract has been submitted.
the contract in your packet?
I don't have it. I don't see it. Yes, it is. Well, yes, we do.
You do?
You do?
We do.
Where?
The ELC, for the ELC grant.
Let's get the resolution.
That's
Got
the
the
resolution.
resolution.
We don't have, we have the resolution.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get that and distribute that tomorrow. And it should have been in the packet. And so basically what this grant does, it's another state grant, no match grant. The state's trying to help sheriff's departments buy equipment for their jail and their jail staff. And this is a COVID-related grant to try to mitigate the spread of COVID throughout corrections facilities. And what we're planning on using this grant for is to purchase gloves and PPE for the jail staff, to purchase a transport vehicle for the jail staff, also new mattresses, 275 new mattresses for the jail, as well as some other equipment. And also it includes some upgrades to the HVAC system for the Justice Center to improve its ventilation.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Howell,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. Any questions?
And again, this one also is non-matching.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
The transport vehicle, I mean, it's a non-matching grant. You know, we're not gonna stand in the way of that, but, I just wanted a transport vehicle, it be just used primarily for something.
For the jail. The jail takes most of all of our local hospital, doctor trips, dentist trips.
Gotcha,
whatever.
yeah.
And usually they get hand-me-downs they have. If this grant would cover a transport vehicle for them, a new one, it'd be used for a long time.
And we've also received mental health transport grants in the past 3 or 4 years, and we've been able to purchase a couple of vehicles from those grants for mental health runs, which are normally runs to Chattanooga or sometimes to Memphis, or but they're for mental health use. So this isn't the first grant that we've had for specific use.
Thank y'all.
Sheriff Mullins, this vehicle, what are you looking at?
Ford Explorer.
Ford Explorer, and that'll be pretty much equipped like a deputy's car?
Yes. And the gloves, some of it is for PPE stuff, but also there's a set of, for lack of a better term, shock gloves that our corrections officers can use. They can touch someone all they want to until they reach to hit bare skin, and it issues a shock to them. So they can grab them by the wrist and take them to the ground with one hand. They come and demonstrated it. It's a new tool for corrections.
9-volt battery?
I think Chairman Cutshaw volunteers for the first ride.
No, I don't either. I've had one.
Just don't shake their hand. Any other questions? All right,
Just want to make a comment, for the value we're getting out of these two grants, you guys are doing a great job.
Yes.
Of sourcing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff for a little bit of money.
That's a
And,
lot of stuff we needed.
congratulations on doing a great job.
Good job.
Yes.
Agreed.
Good.
Good point, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson, very
all I
nicely said. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion is carried. Item 5I, renewal of a Hamblen County Sheriff's Department slip and mooring lease agreement, Cherokee Boat Dock LLC. Sheriff Mullins.
This is a slip at Morristown Marina out there at Cherokee Park. We've had it for probably the last 7 years. We've got the sheriff department boat out there in case we need it. They give us a cut rate of $100 a month. And I think this is probably the 7th year we've had it.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion. Second.
Mr. Long made the motion, Mr. Richardson second. Any questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question for the attorney. I'd like to know in paragraph 12, can the county as the tender defend and identify Cherokee boat dock for losses caused by the tenant? And can the county identify and protect Cherokee boat dock? I'm just curious about the contract there, sir. If our attorney could answer the question, please.
We are typically not allowed to indemnify and hold harmless third parties. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
This is not something that has crossed my desk recently, I don't believe.
So that part in the contract is okay? Am I understanding you
No,
correctly?
You misunderstood. Typically, we do not indemnify. I'm saying that that is probably something, you're asking a good question. That's probably something that needs to be removed from the contract, indemnification and holding harmless a third party. If that's what the county is agreeing to do, which is what I hear you say.
That's the way I'm understanding it, unless I misread it.
And I'll need to review that, Ms. Green. I have not seen that. Our firm drafted it many years ago, is my guess.
Okay.
But that's not something that we are typically supposed to be doing as a governmental entity.
It's labeled tenants indemnity. Cherokee Boat Dock shall not be liable to tenant or any.
That's got nothing to do with the county indemnifying.
Yes, sir, that's right.
If it's the boat dock itself as a entity that is operating the boat dock, if they're indemnifying their tenants, is that what?
That's the way this reads. Shall not be liable to tenant. Shall not be liable to tenant.
If
You
you
wanna-
go-
Is that what you're asking about, Ms.
Yes,
Green?
sir, that's exactly what I'm
That's
questioning.
not what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying that the county was indemnifying or holding harmless. Let me look at the actual language. Thank you.
Please double
Actually,
check it.
Number 12 on page
in
12.
12, line 4, or line 3 and 4.
Yes, that's not the county indemnifying anyone. That's the Cherokee Boat Dock, and that's not us. We're simply leasing that to Cherokee Boat Dock.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So carried. Item 5J, budget amendments, Hamblen County Board of Education, budget amendment number 5, increase of $156,475.64. Ms. Anthony.
This budget amendment for the general fund includes two items. The first item is a grant, a Spark grant, in the amount of $95,158 from the state of Tennessee. And this grant would provide equipment and renovations to create a veterinary science lab classroom at East High School for the use of East and West High School students. And this grant would allow students to train in the field of veterinary technicians, nutritionists, trainers, groomers for small and large animals. The second item in the grant is our high-cost reimbursement in the amount of $61,317. These funds come from the Department of Education specifically for the special education program. And these funds supplement our in-county travel budget, which provides mileage reimbursement for homebound teachers, speech pathologists, teacher assistants that serve multiple schools and travel across the county. As well as contracted services, which provides speech and occupational therapy services for special education students. And I'll be happy to answer questions about those.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Doty, a second?
Second.
Got a second, Mr. Richardson. Any questions? That's, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. The item 5J2, Hamblen County Board of Education, budget amendment number 3, school nutrition program, in the amount of $291,516.13. Ms. Andrew.
These funds are part of a supply chain assistance grants from USDA. We had one of those a month or two ago, for $16,000. This is the second round of those grants. And these funds are to be spent for, food, to address, price increases for food supplies in the school district.
That's great. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Mr. Harville, a second.
Okay.
Ms. Al?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much. Any questions?
I have a question. Does this have anything to do with the lunch bills that were unpaid that can prevent a student from graduating by any chance? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved. Or passes. Excuse me. Item 5J3, Fund 101, County Clerk's Office, $27,000. Ms. Hale.
This budget amendment is to move money from the clerk's restricted account, their fund balance account, to purchase an outdoor kiosk that they'll be using outside the main doors here. So to move $27,000 to cover the cost of it. Peggy is here to answer any questions about the kiosk.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Cutshaw, a second.
Second.
Mr. Doty, any questions?
I have one. Ms. Peggy, are you, well, this will be outside the courthouse to allow folks to come up after hours, correct? I get you. I suppose we'll have some type of camera on it or something. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good, like a good idea.
Yeah, it does. Good deal. Anybody else with a question? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we'll stay up here. Item 5J4, Fund 101, County Clerk's Office, $6,000. Ms. Hale.
So the clerk's office is going to be short in their postage line for this year, and we're moving money from their part-time personnel line. They have not used to cover the excess postage.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Harville, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Long, any questions? Okay, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion moved. Thank you. Item 5J5, Fund 101, Drug Court, $500.
This budget amendment is to cover a shortage of gasoline budgeted line for drug court. And in turn, we're moving it from their medical insurance line in which they have it.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Doty, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Harville, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hale? No questions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5J6, Fund 101, Jail, $52,500.
So in the jail, the overtime line is going to be overspent because they are short 8 to 9 correctional officers in the jail. And this budget amendment kind of goes hand in hand with the next one that we'll get to, but Captain Moss estimates that, and based on what they have spent, we're going to need about $70,000 to cover that overtime expense for the remainder of the year. But there is excess funds in the guards line because they're short-staffed. So this first one then is going to take $52,500 from the guard line to apply it to overtime.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Harville. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who was that? Mr. Richardson, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Does this take you through the end of the year?
How many officers would be hired with that money if they were available?
What they're short.
Yeah, they're short, but that's pretty big money for, I mean, we need it. But I mean, we'd be able to get maybe 2 or 3 officers with that kind of money?
The turnover rate is extremely high. I don't know for sure, but probably knows better more about this than I do.
Well, I'm just gonna give you an example of what happened last night. I was discussing it with the mayor. We had a pretty good fight down in the jail last night. 2 of our officers got blood in their mouth from an individual that's hepatitis positive.
Oh,
So we're probably gonna be 2 officers down for a little bit doing testing. They've been running 8 or 9 corrections officers short the whole year. Used to, we'd take about every 4 months, take applications, run through the process of their physical fitness testing. Now, if we get 2, we'll take them tomorrow, just to get them hired. But that's the situation we're at right now.
Mr. Richardson?
What's a correction officer cost burdened up, you know, benefits and all that? I mean, is it,
We're making, I think, $15.52 an hour.
so 36,000 or so?
Chairman Hall,
Yes, ma'am.
may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
How many officers have you got at present?
I don't have that with me right now. I know that they're about 9 short right now.
Are they on just in the jail, or are they on the road and the jail?
Just the jail.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other questions? All right, let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5J, 7, Fund 101, jail, $20,707.
This budget amendment is to record funds received from the SCAT grant. And of those funds received, we're applying $3,106.05 to other charges to cover the administrative cost that Justice Benefit charges us to administer the grant. And then the remainder of it will be applied to overtime to help offset and get us to that $70,000 we're
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Doughty, a second?
Second.
Mr. Long? Any questions? Now let's vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5J7, Fund 101, Drug Court, $150.
This budget amendment just is to place funds back into the drug court's line for in-service and self-development. Kenny Knight had signed up to go to a class and was unable to attend, so we have been refunded that money and we're putting the money back into our budget and increasing the associated revenue.
Nice to get some back. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Harville, do I hear a second?
Yes,
Ms. Howell?
yes, sir.
I don't think there's any questions, but do we have any questions? Let's vote the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Last item, 5J8, Fund 131 Highway Department, $300,000.
Bill is here to help with any questions, but he has asked to move $300,000 into his capital outlay account from the highway fund balance to cover the resurfacing of McBride Road.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Cutshaw, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Richardson? Any questions for Mr. Poole?
Yeah, go ahead and let us know what's going on here, Barry.
From the start of this fiscal year to now, we spent about 1.8 million on about 6 or 7 roads. We're down to, we don't have any more funding sources. We spent this 176 fund out, we spent the state aid funds out, we spent the regular budget item out, so we don't have any place to go now but the fund balance. And we got, with the exception of 2 pipes under the road, we got McBride ready to pave. So this is our last ditch effort at funding, and we'll be done till we figure out something.
Okay.
So we got McBride Road and then a piece of Warrensburg Road up toward Greene County that we can do, and a little bit on Spangle. So this is our last effort toward getting some money for paving.
Mr. Chairman, can I continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, in McBride, is that from Central Church all the way to the end? Is that, I'm just curious.
That's from Clearview down to
Yeah, Clearview.
Cherokee.
Clearview, my bad,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, Cherokee Drive.
Well, that's good, that's good.
That's 2 miles, yeah.
But it sounds like you've done quite a bit of work this year.
It does. We've probably spent about $600,000 on contracted services, helping us get some things ready, and then, of course, we've had a crew getting things ready as well. So it's been a good year, but in virtue of that, we spent everything we've had. So we're going to be in a beggar's position at this point after we do this.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
please. Just curious, Mr. Poole, what determines the length? What is, how many miles or half miles does $300,000 buy?
We can put 2 inches of new asphalt down for about $130,000 per mile.
A lot of money in it.
And that's just the asphalt. That doesn't add in what it costs to prepare it for paving, for resurfacing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so are we preparing the base for this?
Yes.
Going down McBride?
Yes.
So is that coming out of another fund?
No, it's coming out of our regular budget.
So that, what is that from Clearview down there? How many miles? 2?
2.
So it's costing us how much per mile then?
$130,000 per mile.
Per paving?
We put a
Just
bid
for the
out. We
paving?
get a bid back in April every year with our new asphalt prices. So these are last year's prices. I don't know what next year's prices will be in terms of what we'll get back in April. It could change from 130,000 mile to 150,000 mile. If it would go down, it'd be great, but it could change.
But what's the fee for preparing it for the asphalt?
Well, if we have our own forces do it, it's about $120,000 a mile. If we contract it, it's somewhere around $270 a mile. So we can do it for half as much. We just can't get it done as fast because we don't have a paver. We have to do it all by hand.
That's the total cost, prep and paving.
If we get a contractor to do it, it's about $300,000 per mile. If we do it, it's about $230, $240.
Okay.
So you're preparing this one?
It's being prepared. We're down to the final stages. I think we might have a couple of pipes we want to replace, and then we'll have it ready. So I'd like to do it before the end of this budget year, before June 30th. If I think that can happen.
What does a paver cost? You say you do it all by hand, so
A small paver that would do from 8 to 12, 14 feet, it'd probably be about $300,000 for a new one. So, but obviously, when you pave with that, you pave nice, smooth, struck-off surface. Doesn't have the nuances that one would have by hand, but.
Have any other questions for Mr. Poole? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You see some items of interest there with no actions needed. Just look over those. You have questions, we'll try to answer those. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Hahn.
I have a question, if you please.
Concerning finance?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
My first question is, does the mayor have the legal right to order the disposal or the demolition of a county vehicle, county property? My apologies. And the example I use is the spring house for the Hale property that was tore down. That's my first question, sir, under finance.
I didn't catch half of that, and so.
Oh, I apologize. I should have gotten mine closer.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Does the mayor have the authority to order the disposal or the demolition of county property? And I'm talking about the spring house that was part of the Hale property. That's my question, sir.
Okay. I mean, this body, we've moved from that. Are you recording, ma'am? I'm just asking you straight out. Are you recording? I'm asking you because you're holding it like you are recording. And, you know, it's very distracting. And that's exactly why we have the rule, because you're being very distracted on the front row holding up your phone. So, we'll change our rules. Thank you.
Chairman Capshaw.
Yes, ma'am.
My question.
To answer your question, I don't know. We'll have to refer that, but that has gone and passed. I slept since then. So does he have the authority? Yes, ma'am, I think he does. But to answer your question, definitely, I don't know that answer.
Who do we check with to get an answer, sir?
Well, the mayor's in session here. I don't know if he's got an answer for you or not. I don't know.
I would think we'd need a legal opinion, sir. I would think, just my unlearned ability here.
This body voted to move forward with that. And that's the only thing that I can tell you right now. I don't know.
Well, my next question is under the ethics policy that I have gotten a hold of the last little bit. My question is, can a county commissioner use county letterhead to send out campaign literature, like what was done in the May 22nd campaign?
Ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about, or can I answer that question? That would be, I guess our attorney would need to answer
Well, according to the ethics policy, we're not allowed to use.
Point of order, Mr.
County
Chairman, I don't think
Yeah.
it has anything to do with finance committee
I have to
whatsoever.
agree that it doesn't have anything to do with finance, as you said that it did, but.
Well, I felt like it did, so I apologize if I offended you, sir.
No, you've not offended me, it just has, I don't see where
But
it
I
fits
would
into
like to have an
finance.
opinion to know.
Okay, well, you have
because
to request that, I suppose.
If I understand the ethics committee correctly, the ethics policy for Hamblen County, we're not to use, and when I say we, I mean county commissioners.
We need to move on from this, and
We
we'll
don't have that
we'll
use,
try
sir.
to look that up for you. I really don't know. We'll ask our attorney about
I
that.
will look forward to your answer, sir. Thank you.
Personnel Committee. Chairman Doty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have anyone that would like to address this committee? If so, come forward to the podium. Ms. Noy?
Denoe, Joe Stevens Road, Morristown. I would like to talk about the noise discussion that's scheduled.
That's not on
It's
our
not on
Oh,
agenda.
this is personnel,
No.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to address the Personnel Committee on items on the agenda? Seeing none, old business, there is none. With new business, we have the approval of the education pay submissions. We have one individual who received their associate degree. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
With a motion and second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Have no new items of interest. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Doty. We'll now move to the Public Services Committee. Chairman Richardson, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. Called the order, the Public Services Committee. Any visitors wishing to address the committee at this time?
I got the right time now. I'd like to talk about 4C, the open discussion on standards governing excessive noise. This has been brought up, or this was brought up back in, I think, past summer of 2022. I'm not sure why we're just now discussing the standards, but I would like to ask that you inquire and find out about other counties. I'm sure we're not the only county that has this problem. We're probably not the only county that needs to work through something in order to provide guidelines. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, I feel sure there are other counties and certainly other cities that have this type of problem, and they have standards and they take care of it. And I would suggest you find out or pull examples and then talk when you've got something concrete from people who have actually gone through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, sir.
Dan Pellegrin, 7290 Sweetbriar Drive. Thank you, Commissioners. I'd just like to follow up what she said. I didn't see no stand or anything printed over there, so I just think, I know we discussed last month about decibel limit. I can understand that. But we do need something for excessive noise that goes over a certain distance. You know, especially for sound systems or live music. If you don't have a permit, if I got a closed building, just to give you a perspective how far I live, they're already starting right now. Last weekend and 2 weeks ago. And they actually played till 12:13 in the morning. And perspective of mine, my house is about from this building to the White House way over there. That's how far I'm about 350, 400 feet from the building. And that's how far it carries. So, and you know, neighbors that actually across the street that are closer to the building than I am. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the committee? If not, we'll move on to item 3, old business, there is none. Item 4A, urban growth plan. Steve Nielsen, Planning Director, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Excellent. I'm going to apologize on the front end. I start with this slide every time I do the presentation, and I know many of you have seen it over, but the point is this is not an annexation plan. This slide's really for more of the people in the audience who aren't familiar with this process, so I try to include it in each presentation. Basically what it comes down to is in 2017 the state passed legislation that requires written requests from property owners before we can annex property. So just because you may be included in this boundary does not mean we have any intention of annexing it. First, this process started last September with a joint meeting of the city and the county at Walter State, where we discussed the process. After that, the city and the county each had their own public hearing. At those meetings, they appointed a coordinating committee. Representing the county was Mayor Britton, Bill Hicks, and Commissioner Harbaugh. I'd like to give a special thanks to Mr. Harbaugh, who agreed to serve as the coordinating committee chairman. He did an excellent job guiding us through this process. This is the current boundary as it was established and last amended in 2008. The coordinating committee took that plan, met 3 times to review it. This is the proposed expansion of those areas that are highlighted in the blue hash. Looking at it, we had members on the committee that were involved with utilities. We had people who were involved from the schools. We had people from the Chamber of Commerce, all looking at, areas where we anticipate growth, or, have utilities that it's been extended to those areas where we see if there's a good idea to encourage growth. On February 9th, the coordinating committee met and voted to forward this on to the city and the county for adoption or for ratification. Last week, March 7th, the city voted to ratify the plan. And where do we go next? Like I said, this is kind of the final plan that they voted on. Next step is the county commission can vote to ratify this agreement. If they do, it'll then be forwarded on to the local government planning advisory committee for consideration. Excuse me. That's a quick overview of the process. If you all have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. You need a question?
Well, I did have a question for him. I'm just.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just curious, public feedback on your proposal. Have you had much?
And I'll defer part of this to Stan, but, the calls we got mostly is, if I'm included in this area, will it be annexed? And once we explained to them that they wouldn't be, then they were satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Stan got a number of calls.
I had a few calls, but most of them were clarification calls of, if I'm in this, what's going to happen, how does it happen? There's a lot of steps to have to go through. First of all, the person has to ask to be annexed.
Right.
Then the city has to decide, can we get you the services and do everything? If they can't, they'll deny the annexation. So it's a much different system than was many years ago, where it was just, hey, we're going to take you in, and you don't have any say-so in it.
Right. The only others, I did have a few requests to be included, and actually a couple of them, they were just so far out that we really couldn't recommend it.
So, Stan, to you, you've looked at all this, and you're representing us, and everything is
Yes. Yeah.
good.
I
good
feel
with your
I feel
thought,
very
right?
comfortable with this. Yes.
And same with you, right? Everything's
Yes, sir?
okay. All right. So, my question is, you are asking for ratification of this?
Not this evening. This
Okay.
was just an informational item. My understanding is you'll be asked to consider it for ratification at the next meeting.
My understanding is we would adjourn for a public hearing, have a public hearing on it, and then we'd ratify at the next meeting. Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is information on.
This committee to recommend before
Okay. Would we have to? We'd have to do that for our 10-day rule, or is, okay. Okay. All right, so if the committee,
took no action, probably the action, if you don't want to vote, if you don't want to make a recommendation, you would, well, that would, couple of the rules is on calendar. Make sure it's on the calendar. If there's no committee.
well, I guess my question is, do we have a motion to recommend this?
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion.
All right, so we have a recommendation to go forward with this plan. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any other discussion?
I have a question.
I've got one question. Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Green.
Thank you, sir. Everybody that's in the city, they're paying city tax, do they have, like the sewer and all that?
No, there are areas outside the city that I think were annexed in the 90s, and maybe even the 80s, that do not have sewer at this time.
But they still pay the tax and everything for the city, even though they don't have the amenities?
Well, they do pay city taxes, but I would defer to Morristown Utilities, but they don't pay sewer fees.
Good.
Thank you.
Mr. Long.
If a person owns property already that is in the city limits, and then you all propose more property on that property, does that automatically take them into annexation, or do they have to come back and ask for that, the rest of that property to be?
I'm not real sure of the question. But if your question is if part property's in,
Yes.
and part of it's out, unless you give me a letter in writing asking for it, it will not be considered.
Any other questions?
Chairman, I'd like clarification then. Our vote here, our motion is to send this to commission for ratification. Is that the motion? Is that
That's
what
my
we're
motion.
doing?
That's the motion from Mr. Harper.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, let's vote the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, the like sign, the motion carries. Okay, item 4B, Resolution 23 to amend zoning map of Hamblen County, Tennessee by rezoning District 05, tax map 0130, Group A, parcel 8067 East AJ Highway, Whitesburg, from A1 to C1.
Yes, sir. Property owner has requested his property at, as you just stated, 8067 East AJ Highway to be rezoned from A1 to C1, your primary commercial district. This property is slightly over 0.8 acres in size. It is currently vacant. He has A1 zoning to the north and east, along with R1 zoning to the south. However, several C1 zone parcels are nearby to the southwest along East Andrew Johnson Highway, with the closest being just 0.4 miles away, so roughly 220 feet. Due to the proximity of C1 zoning and East Andrew Johnson being a major corridor within the county, staff recommends approval of this rezoning request, and Planning Commission did vote last week in support of this request also. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Any questions yet for him? Okay, if not, we'll, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Ahern, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hahn, any discussion? If not, let's vote the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the like sign. The motion carries. Thank you, sir. Item 4C, open discussion on standards governing excessive noise. And I'd like to start this out by clarifying something that I said last time, last meeting, was I referred to a vague ordinance, and I should have said a broad ordinance, my interpretation of a broad ordinance instead of vague. So tonight, what we wanted to do was hear from commissioners if they have heard from people in the community and have some open discussion about this. To Ms. Noy's request, I have reviewed several counties, cities, municipalities, and there's a broad spectrum of what is expected or what can be, it can be, I guess, described as excessive noise. Some of the counties have noise decibel limits. Some have just noise and the ways those noise are generated. I have talked with Charles Curtis, and he has given an opinion that if we go to the extent of saying this many decibels, this location, at this time, we have to have an approved, somebody that's certified to read a meter. We have to have a meter that is certified, tested, approved, and we have to have somebody that's willing to go out at that time of the day, night, morning, whatever, and take the reading. His suggestion is to basically just say that we have a noise ordinance and we expect quiet times to be this, and that if it's, if the citizen wants to complain, they call the sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department will go out, review it. First time is a verbal warning. Second time can be issue a citation. And so I'm open to discussion.
And that call out would be, if the sheriff's department were to be called out, that would be considered disorderly conduct, is that correct? And it carries a more bite to it than, say, a ordinance with a $50 fine, is that correct?
Yes, I think a disorderly conduct, public nuisance, I'm not sure we have a public nuisance TCA code. Okay, so it would be a disorderly conduct, and it would be against a curfew hour. I would suggest a curfew hour of sometime between midnight and 7, or 11 and 6 or 7 or something like that. You know, and this is, again, just stuff that I've found. Essentially, we as a legislative body want to ensure the residents have the right of a property owner or tenant to enjoy his or her property without interference. Disruption of quiet enjoyment may constitute a legal nuisance. And then we find that excessive noise is detrimental to physical, mental, social well-being of the citizens, and that we would like to have a regulation to address this need, and then go from there with some, some description of quiet time that is expected. And I don't know how to put this in writing, but somehow use common sense to decide whether it's a dog that's, seen a coyote, or somebody that's out shooting fireworks. There's got to be a difference, and you can't, I guess, regulate or legislate everything, but we have to have some definition of what's expected for quiet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm actually in the 13th where the Red Barn is. I've been there numerous times, can't tell you how many times that they knew I was there and times that they didn't. But it is an issue. With that being said, any action we take affects the whole county, not just that area.
Right.
So we have to look in depth to this. There's all kinds of noise. There's trains come by, and
That's where the common sense would have to come into
Right.
play without putting in writing.
But I do agree, we need something done pretty quick.
Not to be funny at all, but who would be making the common sense judgment? Would the sheriff be
That would
making?
be the sheriff's department.
If I may interject, Chairman, that's why I think we use the disorderly conduct. If we were to have a parameter, say, of a curfew, that we, as a county, are observing quiet times, that doesn't involve a common sense, somebody having to mow their hay because the rain's coming in the middle of the night. That's common sense.
Right.
But we're going to allow our arbitrary judgment from the deputy on the scene or the sheriff to make that call of what is disorderly conduct.
Yes.
I'd like to, could we not just say that, quiet time is this in Hamblen County? And there it is, that, they do it in other counties, and the city. I think the city has something that says, okay, guess what? It's night time. No more loud noise, and it might be, and maybe we need to define for wedding and event centers. And you can't help the train and the airplane and the coyote. That's going to happen. But things that, you know, I just think maybe we can narrow it down, but saying that quiet happens now, let's suppose we did do the 11 to 7. And, now, does that mean you get to be at, 150 decibels until 11 OG? No. That's the tricky part. But I have to assume that you've been out there a time or two, Sheriff.
Oh, we have.
Yeah.
That's the only problem right now with noise problem we're having right now.
And I think for the, what is it, the fireworks, that's if you do it at Cherokee, everybody says it's okay, And, but it's not the only game in town, the Red Barn. It is one that seems to be noisy. And, but we could say wedding venues, event centers. But first of all, I think if we go with Miss Noe's idea, let's other counties have quiet time, the city has quiet time, and just say, here we are. We're going to be quiet from this time on. That ought to help us get started. There are restaurants I don't go into because to me they're noisy.
Common sense.
Common sense. And so, now evidently, there's a little bit of lack of common sense out there, and maybe we need to remind them that all these parties and like I say, other venues, people can rent, well, they wouldn't rent it that late at night, but Hamblen County has a quiet time, and there it is. Now, you asked me a good question earlier is that like 7 days a week, or is that, we used to have school nights. At school nights, you just don't, have any kind of thing like that. But those are my thoughts on that. And also, I would like something like that to happen. I noticed that when she had mentioned about the postal charges, the post office will tell you, oh my goodness, stamps are going up, and then, so here it is Monday, and you go into the post office on Friday, and by golly, they're up. I think that's the kind of notice we need, that, say.
Effective this date. Or,
yeah, and say, yeah, we mailed that to you, and, oh gosh, we mean it. Anyway.
So one of the, go ahead.
Well, the only thing about it, when you put the time limit on it, curfew, they're gonna use it right up to 11 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
So we're not addressing the high decimal, we're gonna have to have something, But it would give them some relief after the 11 o'clock time, I don't think you restrict that to any day a week. I think you put that in. My opinion is 7 days a week, 11 to 7.
Yes. I like that.
Commissioner Long, are you speaking of just events, or are you speaking about if a dog barks after 11, is that?
I think you have to put it out there and use common sense. I don't think you can just identify a certain event, because I think they're going to say, well, you're...
They're topping.
It seems that what I've read, the most offensive noise after curfew is noise that is generated, not necessarily, it's some machine is enhancing the noise.
Yeah.
And did I understand Sheriff Mullins saying this is the only,
That's our biggest problem now.
happens to be this certain event?
It's just now getting started back up in spring, warm weather. There's some big crap to make up.
Let's see, I was at the, Gwen, we were at the 160 hearing, and they had, and they were talking about at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, school lets out, and by golly, was it Jackson Avenue became a raceway? And then the other street, near the tech school, and I'm thinking, oh my, and then the vehicles are shaking and the radio's up and so, you know, there is noise going on, but at nighttime when you're putting, you know, putting the kids to bed, there's the issue.
I think there's a certain time that's expected to
Yes,
be
sir.
quiet.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Green?
I have a question as far as the sheriff. What time are the call-ins out right now? What is your worst problem time?
I've got the list that the mayor and I talked about a while back, how many times. We get a premise history from 911. I don't have that, but I can tell each time somebody's called about the complaint from the Red Barn.
Is it you?
It's 11 on.
That was what I was wondering.
Close.
So if we do 11 o'clock cutoff, will it stop it?
Well, it may not stop it, but it'll at least put a parameter
Perfect.
to police action, or I guess that's not the right word, but at 11 o'clock, there'd be a curfew, and it would be expected to be a quiet time after that.
If not, we can cite them to Judge Collins' court and see how it goes from there.
And maybe say something, you had brought this up, or you had brought this up. Maybe say, oh my golly, you've got a disorderly conduct thing, you can't rent it until that, you've been before the judge. That might put a little more into it.
I think the owner of this Red Barn possibly lives in Nashville.
Yes, sir.
And he's got someone that runs the venue for him.
I guess that would be a legal
I don't know that we can
opinion.
put any kind of restraint on them prior to the disorderly conduct being taken care of in court. Cash question here.
How,
Yeah, it'd have to be adjudicated before you could put a stop to them.
Mr. Chairman?
how much can we put in to, when you say, you used the word vague, but are we restricted to how much we can put in the first part of it? Can we do it, like, can we put the curfew in first?
We can.
And then try to
Yes.
come up with something then?
We can add to, but at the point we pass the rule, the next time would be a 2/3 vote for, I think that's the only qualifier.
That's right.
You know, the first time it'd be a, simple majority that we pass, and then the second time, if we want to amend that, it'd be a 2/3 majority to do any other, which is, I don't think is a problem. If we find more information, we need to, we can get volumes of this, and it's not going to do any different or any better as one sentence. If we keep, the more we put into it, the more that we have to, we need to provide services or render finances or whatever you want to call it to help police that. So if it's one broad statement that says, we expect quiet hours from 11 to 7, and, I've looked everywhere, different states, different counties, different whatevers, and there's just all kinds of stuff you can put in there.
I think the culprit at the Red Barn is the subwoofer. All you hear, I've not heard a lot. I mean, I couldn't tell you what song was playing. All you get is that boom, boom, boom. It's like pulling up to a car
So
at the red
between-
light, and all you hear is that boom, boom.
Between 11 and 7, no subwoofers.
Well, they can cut them down. I mean,
Well, I just think if we had something like that, and it might determine what they have down there. They might not plan some events that they know is gonna go to 2 o'clock in the morning. I think, what's the latest you all experienced noise down there?
Yes, sir.
So if we put a curfew on that says 11 or midnight or whatever, they could still function after that, except they just can't be excessive noise. And then we'd have to figure out how do you define excessive noise, Mr. Harper?
These businesses have to have a license, right?
Correct.
Is there any recourse to suspend their license if they come in violation of this?
Mr. Capps?
these businesses have to be licensed, right? The event venues?
I don't think that we would have a prerogative of suspending a license or something like that.
Even if they're repeat offenders through this and,
It would have to be something that was on our books or on our regulations with regard to license. Probably, and I can't tell you this without research, but it's probably
State control.
right. But I mean, this is affecting quality of life.
Damages.
Yeah.
I say damages, and everybody can take that for what it means.
Yeah.
And we're not able to put damages on people. There are ways to do that.
Right. I think that's something that we've got to look at too, because if there's not some teeth to it, and I think that having the sheriff involved and being able to charge them with disorderly conduct, that's the way to go, because there's a lot more teeth to that than a $50 fine. And if you can suspend that license and keep them from bringing in money for a month, they may listen to that.
Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
come out real quick. We've heard a barking dog or this or that. Could we add language to it? And Mr. Capps, you can, if you'll listen to this one, maybe add to or change, but something to the effect of intentionally generated noise that is disruptive to the public.
Intentionally generated.
Intentionally generated noise that is disruptive to the public.
Between the curfew time when we come up. See, if I may interject this, whatever we come up with, we should make sure the DA supports what we're doing. Even if the sheriff brings them in on citation, then it goes far, we just need to make
That's
sure.
something I will have to contact with the district attorney's office and Judge Collins. Do we write the venue runner? Do we write the band?
Yeah.
Do we write the guy that's got the volume control?
So,
Write them all. That'll get attention.
There's a subsection on disorderly conduct that already covers that without having to tweak that. It says anything that's a noise complaint that interrupts lawful activities, which I would imagine sleeping would be one of those.
TCA what number, please?
3917-305.
Thank you.
Let me ask one. I have been contacted by a guy who has a shooting range. And he said, no, he wanted to make sure that, he said, I understand y'all are discussing this. And he said, we don't shoot on Sunday and we don't have alcohol around. And I would assume, since it's on his property, now I haven't been out yet, and I can't think of where he lives, but you could have, but, he has built this on his property in the back, and just wanted to make sure that, that wasn't an issue in there. So I needed to bring that, because there we are.
Well, I don't shoot my gun after 11 o'clock at night.
Amen. It'd be
Yeah, I think.
under threat, right?
Again, that would be common sense that,
I have, but only during certification.
Excuse me, Chairman, if you want to address the guy, Mr. Dan, he's asked to address something.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, in our Hamblen County
Thank you.
books, yeah, right. Okay.
And there we are. That's right.
Okay, any other comments or questions or thoughts? So, if I may, if you have any additional thoughts, send me an email. I'd like to draft up something and give it as a proposed draft. I'd like to have county attorney review it as well before we send it out as a draft. Is that appropriate, I guess is my question.
Chairman, you're asking, you're going to come up with a draft, and you're going to try to go
Distribute.
through all the steps
Yeah.
and present it in the April committee meeting? Is that-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I'd like to have, we have to turn the document in on the 4th of April, so I'd like to have it, if there's any other comments prior to, March the 31st or something like that. If that's acceptable. Caps, can we work with that?
I think a big part of this is going to be having, as Chairman mentioned a second ago, and Chairman Mullins, is having our court system be willing to stand behind whatever it is that we put out there, because without that, this is not
Correct.
going to work. So we've got to have that before this body adopts anything. We got to be assured that it's going to be enforceable, and I can't assure you that it's going to be enforceable. I can say what I think about its legality and what I think about it in general and about the language. But in terms of whether the DA and the judge are going to be willing to enforce it, and under what conditions and circumstances to enforce it, it's going to be real important.
Okay, so, thank you. To clear this up, I'm going to draft something up to present it to the April committee. And I guess the question would be, would I need to run it through county attorney, Judge Collins, and the DA prior to the 4th, or prior to the committee, to see if it rolls with them?
I think it's,
Is that-
I think it's
I think that's,
imperative
yeah.
at this point that you do so.
Okay, all right. So if they're in agreement, we'll make whatever adjustments they want, and then we'll have something for the April committee meeting for review. Okay? Is that good? Everybody, okay? All right, so, other than that, Chairman, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Chairman Richardson. We'll now move to our Rules Committee. Chairman Hahn, you are recognized.
The Rules Review Committee is in order. If anyone wishes to address the committee, you're welcome to do so at this time.
And then OHO Stevens Road, Morristown. You have a very, very important item, business, whether to gut the 10-day rule and make it a 5-day rule for reviewing, researching, asking questions about contracts. The 10-day rule, as it says, was generally puts, it does put the contracts into the committee, just like today when you had the health department contract and these other contracts. It gives you 10 days and the public an opportunity to review, ask questions, make comments, just like you're talking about going to the DA or to the judges and finding out, getting information. Contracts need that. And I remember when the 10-day rule was implemented, there was a person who stood up here and said, there is probably 99% of the time no contract that is so urgent that it can't wait for review for 10 days. Now, if you want to make an exception for 9 days when there's a holiday on, committee meetings, which typically happens in October with Columbus Day, that's fine. But to cut it down to 5 days, that's irresponsible, and it's unnecessary. If there is a contract that is so urgent that it doesn't make it to committee, but you feel you need to act on it at the commission meeting, you can suspend the rule. So It doesn't need to be a 5-day rule. It needs to stay a 10-day rule. And if there's some emergency, which I don't think we have seen so far, but if there is, you have the opportunity to shorten the time. You could even shorten it down to 1 day in an emergency if you wanted to. So please, not that I expect it, but this was put into place for a reason, a very good reason, so that you aren't ambushed with things. Just like the contract today, you had the opportunity and someone thought about, well, let's have a buyback provision. 10 days gives you time to act and think and ask questions. And I would implore you to leave the 10-day rule, suspend it if there's some emergency. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Noy. We'll take this up now, and, well, does anyone else have anything, a comment? Come to the podium, please. State your name, please.
Melissa Ballou, 5775 Old Russellville Pike. My question is addressed, well, to the two gentlemen that left. The part of the property that they're not annexing, but spreading out on boundaries.
We're out of order.
We've already passed that. We're on rules now.
Sorry, this is a Rules Committee, and that should have been addressed during Public Services when Mr. Richardson had the floor. So sorry.
I didn't know that we could talk then.
Well, yeah, okay. Apologies.
Okay. Under new business with the Rules Review Committee, we have the rules for contracts, discussion, and consideration. We're proposing a 5-day rule. And commissioners, in your packets there, you have the current 10-day rule where contracts will be put in the regular committee packets to be discussed at the committee meeting, but no action will be taken until the subsequent county commission meeting, which is normally 10 days after the monthly committee meeting. The new proposal is 5 days, referred to as 5-day rule, and contracts presented to the Hamblen County Commission shall be put in either the regular committee packet or in the regular commission packet to be discussed at either the committee or the regular commission meeting. No action shall be taken until a minimum of 5 calendar days. Action may be taken on that 5th day. That is our proposal. I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it so we can get some discussion going.
All right, we have a second from Mr. Doty. We have any discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I second it so we can get through to the discussion, but I supported the 10-day rule because I think we do need some clarification on some items, and back a few years back, but I have seen that in most instances I can find anything I need to find within 5 days. If I set forth to look for it. I'm assuming it doesn't say, but my understanding of procedure is that any rule that we enact, we can move to set aside with a 2/3 motion to proceed quicker if we need to on this. And I do understand the issues associated with doing that at times, with the controversies and such, mostly not from a standpoint of someone wanting more time to review it, but just to call things out. I would hope that if we go to the 5-day rule, and that's the will of the body, that we can all work together. And if someone wants some information, if you'll email out, I'm sure that one of the others has already received it, already researched it, looked it up. So with that, like I said, I did support the 10-day, but I am moving my support toward the 5th-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. Doughty. Anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, have you?
Yeah, Mr.
Has
Richardson.
anybody had like an opinion from CTAS or any of that body about days and?
I don't think it's really in their
It's a local
purview.
rule. I don't think.
Local rule.
It's not in their purview, so, yeah. Any other?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
first of all, our committee meeting and then our commission meetings are 10 days apart unless I've miscounted somewhere. So why move it when our meetings are 10 days past that anyway? It does give time to research. I don't know about you, but when I pick my book up at 1 or 2 o'clock on Friday, it pushes me to go through it. And a lot of times I don't get the additional information I would like to have to make an informed decision. I know there's more of you in here that are a lot smarter than I am, but I would like to be able to do my job with the full information. And that 10 days gives me time to ask questions. On Friday, everything's closed on on Saturday. So it pushes you. And if you work on Monday, the 10 days gives us adequate time from this meeting to the next to do some research. And I have put in requests for records, and it took way past 10 days to get it. So I for one would like to see you leave it what it is, for the simple fact several of you voted for this, and I'm proud of the ones that voted for it. And Commissioner Horn, if I was told correctly by Commissioner Neesmith, you were one that voted for it to start with, as well as Commissioner Doty. So I don't see why we can't leave it like it is. You can set it aside if you need to. You've got more than enough votes to set it aside anytime you want to. So why change it?
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Horner.
Last year, I think it was in June or July, we met in this small courtroom. And Mr. Neesmith's not here, but he brought up the 10-day rule. Why, I don't know. It wasn't on the agenda. But he made a comment, and he said, if we weren't going to abide by it, we might as well do away with it. And I feel exactly the same way. We're not going to abide by it. There's no need to have it.
Ms. Howe,
Yes,
do you have a
okay.
comment?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree that the 10 days should stay in place. If I follow Mr. Doty's thoughts on, if you felt like you had, if the 5-day were in place and you wanted to change something, you could vote and do it. Well, same thing with if you have the 10-day. If there's something terribly pressing that has come up, then you could vote to say, hey, let's go ahead and get this knocked out here in 5 days. So I would be in favor of keeping the 10-day. Thank you.
Mr. Cutshaw.
So the 10-day rule, as Commissioner Green and Commissioner Howe have just said, by natural ability, we meet committee meetings, there is 10 days. And it will always be that way. Normally, we will have 10 days. To enact the 5-day rule, you will then have to have a special call meeting ahead of time before you can even do that. We still have our time. This allows movement if necessary. That's all it does. Instead of having to set aside a rule and just look like we're not being transparent, we're abiding by the rules that we've set in this body. That's all this does. By natural movement, we have 10 days. In this body, by majority vote, can elect to table a motion and give more time if 5 days is not enough. Which, again, you have to have a special called meeting to even use the 5 days. We've had a couple of, one in particular I recall in the past year or so. Yes, ma'am, are you filming? I'm just letting you know, you are very distracted with that, and that's against our local rules. No, I don't. It's just every time I look up, I see your phone pointing. It's not a guilty conscience, it's you baiting. So anyway, back to the point, we would have a special call meeting to enact any movement that we have, any contracts. That's why we had an issue where we went through committee, we went to commission. At that commission meeting, there was a contract handed out. Everybody in the meeting already knew what was at place. Because it did not go back through the committee, we had to wait a 30-day time. We'd already conducted all of the business. We'd already went through all the motion, and it was either set aside the rule and look like, or move forward. So, that's how that came up.
Anyone else? Comment? The thing that I would say about it is, we live in where information is no longer just in person. We have a lot of information at our fingertips that we can access. And even on weekends, I know Ms. Green brought up the point that people are closed on Saturdays, but it's pretty accessible to get the information we need to make decisions. So I'm certainly would stand by the 5-day rule. I think it expedites things, and I think it will streamline our commission. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I'd like to amend that motion. I made the motion that we do that, Thomas seconded, but that we call it the information rule.
Information rule. Okay. Do I have a motion, please?
You made the motion, didn't you?
Did we make?
Yeah,
We did, and you seconded it. Very
Yeah.
good. I remember that now. We've been talking for a while. Okay, let's go ahead and vote this motion.
Excuse me? Do we need to, okay. I amend the original motion that we include the information rule. Do we have a second to that? Go ahead.
Yes. Do we have a, okay, Mr. Doty will second the amendment.
So now
And that amendment was just to change the name to the information rule to officially rename it, okay? So now we'll move forward with our vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to bulk waste. Sorry, guys, it's been so long. We will call Chairman Tim Horner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we said last meeting, we have a serious issue in this county with trash, bulk waste, and all kinds of stuff. I've gotten calls this past week, and I know all of y'all have gotten calls with the bulk waste. And I think we need to identify what bulk waste is to start with. We have some, I think they're still here, some of the county guys here who deal with this on a daily basis. And I think we need to identify what bulk waste is. Everybody should have a draft in your packet. And this is just a draft. This is just some things that were already on the books here, some that the city had, some that we had, and some that y'all have given.
Chairman Horner, just to address if you need any visitors to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody would like to speak?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And y'all are gonna try and get a huntsman to talk for only 3 minutes. You're in for a whole lot of hurt. My name's Chad Huntsman. Good afternoon. First off, I want to thank all of you all for how you've treated my dad, first and foremost. Every time he's come here and some of the health problems he's had, everybody's been just flat out awesome to him. They've helped him it helps them get in, and it really means a lot to me and our family. Just want to say thank you for that. So I was born here, raised here. Back in the 80s, I remember we had a Keep America Beautiful campaign. That's showing a little bit of my age, but I always thought we'd go out and pick up trash. It was nice. So I had to move away about 10 or 11 years ago, or about 12 years ago. Went back to school, went to Nashville, lived in Nashville for 10 years. I've been back for about 2 years. And I'll just be honest with you. My number one pet peeve coming back to Morristown is the garbage along the side of the road. I built a house. My kids joke we could have furnished our house 4 or 5 times over while we were building the house just from picking up stuff off the side of the road. I want to offer you some alternatives to what we experienced in Nashville, okay? Where we lived, first off, your container garbage had to be bagged. If it was not bagged, if you just dumped stuff in your container, they would not pick it up. It had to be bagged, and the purpose of that was because if it fell over, a lid blew open, trashed it, and blow out everywhere. The second thing is about bulk waste. Where we lived, there were collection sites, or convenience centers is what they called them in Williamson County. These convenience centers were about an acre in size. They were fenced. There was an entrance and an exit. They had a compactor for household garbage. So you could, if you had too much to fit in your garbage can, you could bring it and put it in there. There was one person working it. It was a one-person show. So it wasn't costly from a continuous expense basis. They had a ramp that you could drive up on that had roll-off containers. So if you rolled up in your truck or SUV or whatever you had your stuff in, and then you throw out your shrub, brush, construction garbage or whatever, the attendant, made sure that you were in the county and it was for homeowner use only. It worked. The roads were clean. I highly recommend we do that. Thank you. I got done 12 seconds.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak?
Wynn Holden, 8150 West Point Drive. Used to live at 2343 Sulphur Springs Road in Road Junction. Went around every day picking up the garbage. Mowed my yard, kept my place clean. Lived here all my life. Been a taxpayer and a hard worker. Thank God that I was able to do it. I go out there now. I don't live out there. My son does. I still go around and pick up garbage. I'd love to see Road Junction cleaned up. I may not get to see it, but one day it will be. I don't like niceness, and I don't like when people throw stuff out. And people that live out there in Road Junction, all of them are not trashy. Some of them are clean. They have pretty places, and I thank God for that. But I got to move. I couldn't get it cleaned up, so I told God I've had enough. So I got to move. And you should come by and see my place now. I live in Mr. Horner's district, and I have a beautiful place that God has let me have. It's God's first, mine second. Even out in Road Junction, it's God's first, mine second. We don't own nothing. We just got it for it. But I like what this gentleman said. I don't know him, but he's got my vote.
Amen.
Anyone else?
Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road, Morristown. This is a very lengthy, detailed document. This is the epitome of you need a 10-day rule, which you need for anything. But evidently some of you are, you don't need 10 days to look at contracts. What I'm concerned about is, well, first of all, the very last page, I wondered where we got a civil penalty not to exceed $76. That just seems like an odd number. Anybody know where that came from? Why $76? Is that some other county's regulation or what? Don't answer.
Public comment section, not public.
I know what it is. And the repayment of administrative costs incident to the correction of the violation, up to $500 for each day of violation. I know Mr. Horner's talked, and many of you have, about education. Well, before you start slapping civil penalties of $76 a day and administrative costs up to $500 a day, should be quite a bit of education and information put out on this, and/or several warnings before you start implementing something as harsh as that. Not that we don't need to be clean, but phasing it in. On page 4, it talks about, and I'm like Ms. Green, I got this late Friday. I had things to do over the weekend, and I've just now actually being able to look at it very much at all. It talks about bulk waste, and it will be kept separate from yard waste. Bulky trash may be put out for collection only on the property where it was generated. It may not be put out prior to the day before scheduled collection. Where is our schedule of collection? Yeah, I live on Joe Stevens Road. I never know exactly when they're going to be coming. I know when they've been through because it gets all picked up and then somebody starts dumping more the very next day. But unless you can't tell people you have to put it out by 7 a.m. on the day of collection if nobody knows when the day of collection is. So there clearly needs to be a very defined schedule of collections. And that's about all I can look at in the very limited time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Twyla Sinkbell, and I live in Talbot, Tennessee. And I've lived there for 10 years in this neighborhood. And every year, the road right-of-way gets, it's terrible. The people that dump their crap. They have no respect for anyone else's property. And frankly, I think that they shouldn't be allowed to dump on road right-of-ways. I think the signage should be changed. If they're going to, you put no dumping, I think the fine should be put on there too, a sign saying what the fine is for it. Frankly, I'd give them a $500 fine. That would be a deterrent. It was a contractor that did this. A contractor. It's terrible. And my husband would go out there and clean up. They'd get in the road, he'd clean it up. He has cancer. He shouldn't have to go out and clean up crap that people, because they're so disrespectful. Terrible. But thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could you give us your name one more time for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Twyla Sinkbell. It's Senkbeil.
Anyone else? Seeing none, as I said earlier, this is just a draft. Nothing's in stone. This was just part of what the city already had in place, and it just gave us some direction in which to pursue this. And it's not going to get fixed tomorrow, overnight. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of people involved. It's going to take this commission. It's going to take the road commissioners, codes enforcement, property maintenance, landfill, garbage department, brush department, constables, sheriff's department, and our citizens to fix this problem. And we do have to educate. And it's not going to, you're not going to educate them overnight. It didn't morph overnight to this. I can recall when I was a kid, we had a brush truck and a trash truck. And then it got to where the brush truck was picking up trash with the brush. I don't think we should pick, if it's mixed, we should pick it up. We have some issues facing us with the ditch line. The TDEC came in, I think, and said the county could face possible fines for what's in the ditch line. We don't know what's in the ditch line a lot of times. There's paint, motor oil. I mean, you just don't know. And that water goes into when the water runs off, it goes into our drinking water. So it's a pretty serious issue that we have to face. And I've talked with Barry, and he's talked with his guys. They see it every day. And to work together on this thing, we can't have Tommy citing them and then Barry's guys going and picking it up, because it goes against what we do. And I noticed the spot down in next to Macedonia, y'all picked up 2 weeks ago, and it was full again the next day. Yesterday, yeah, it was empty again, but I saw him as I came by today putting more in it. So, you know, there's got to be some fine or something to this. But I do want to identify 4 things. Is what is bulk waste? And if you look in your packets, it's going to tell you that residential bulk waste shall include stove, refrigerators, water tanks, washer dryers, furniture, or similar bulky items having a weight greater than 50 pounds or a volume greater than 32 gallons. Bulk waste is not considered to be bags of garbage placed beside the roadway. Residential bulky trash will be collected on a schedule determined by the Highway Sanitation Department. Such refuse shall be kept separate from yard waste and shall be placed adjacent to the back of the curb, adjacent to back of the ditch without blocking the roadway or any sidewalk or drainage ditch. Bulky trash may be put out for collection only on the property where it was generated. It may not be put out prior to the day. That was part of what the city was doing, not what the county was doing, as was said earlier. But there's so much out there, they can't get on a schedule. They're picking up so much. I mean, if they came to my house from the landfill, I'm 30 minutes, so it's 30 minutes of drive time. People don't understand. Every time that truck stops, the legs have to go down, everything has to be set, picking that up. And if you go to 1 or 2 places and you're full, it's 30 minutes back there, not counting the dump time. So if they're working west end, at best, they're going to get 3 loads. I'm maybe pushing it, So, you know, if we eliminate a lot of this trash and get the public to take, it's free. I don't know why people won't. I mean, they load it up to take it to the road. Why can't they just take it on out to the landfill? It doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to go up on the back, depending on what you have. They have the cans down at the bottom. You can just go in and dump there, and they'll take it up to the top. But this is things the public don't know. They're you know, they don't ask. I'm not going up there get my car all muddy or this, so they just dump it, you know. And not only that, it's the contractors, you know.
Mr. Poole, could you answer a question? Is the majority of your bulk, is the majority of your bulk, is it contractors?
Ryan picks it up every day. What do you think? The big bulk is people flipping homes, people going around cutting trees for people and getting paid and putting it on the side of the road. There's a lot of that going on. And a lot of it is where they're flipping these homes that slows us up in order to get to regular people that's coming in this county, is buying a house, flip it in 2 weeks, gone, go to the next one. And that's what a lot's going on in this town. People's making money on that, or our taxpayers' money by us picking it up instead of them hauling it to yourself, paying a $300, $400 bill, scale, across the scale. And it's been that way, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Get off that question, how much you pick up a generator by somebody generating, making a habitable business? It's 20%, 30% of those stars. You come across them, you're gonna sit there. Sometimes half a day working on one guy's house that he's flipping. And if you don't get it, it'll be twice high next time you come. Until it doesn't.
I would think that might be something we could address through the building permits, That's something that has to be explored. But if you hit them with the building permit saying, hey, you're gonna have to rent a dumpster.
Contractors.
You can't, contractors. You cannot put this out here. I've seen tree trimming guys do the same thing. I've seen a guy with a dozer clear 5 acres and took it all to the road. It's not the county's responsibility to pick that up.
Right.
He's getting paid to clear that off, and so I think somewhere down the line, we have to connect it to.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
When you're dispatched out to a site, look, I'm going to the north end of town today, are you dispatched per individual site, or you just take a drive and if you see something, pick it up?
There's 7 of us.
Uh-huh.
How many homes are in this
Right.
county? 16,000?
Yeah.
You got 7.
So you just go out and if you see
got a
something,
route.
you got a route, yeah.
We got a route, and we go in a circle, and we just keep moving on.
So, to go back to your contractor thing, somebody had to coordinate the site with the route to say that it's a contractor's responsibility, and you just pass it up, kind of thing, right?
I mean, you know who's flipping the routes. Flipping the homes.
You would,
Right.
you see the same trash, yeah.
There's one house, I put 5 of those on the store.
Well, I seen one where there was a mobile home being tore down and it being taken all down to the road. That's not the county's responsibility to pick that up.
Right.
That's.
Right.
Well, if I may, but that's exactly what we've instructed Hamblen County citizens is, you get it right here, okay, it's no longer your responsibility. And when you talk about education, I grew up in Nashville, and we're the only county that does this. I asked my son who lives in Knoxville, he says, gosh, I've got a place for the appliances, I've got a place for the mattresses, I have a place for, if the brush, good gracious, we're about there. And I'm wondering how long we can continue to do this for citizens who are saying, Mr. Poole will get it if you, right there.
But you go around and there's, somebody puts out a perfect pile.
Yes, sir.
Okay. They leave it there, and then there's scavengers coming out
That's true.
and go right through and scatter. Here's that wall. And you could have got it with 1 or 2 scoops. You're sitting there picking that up, takes 15, 20 minutes, when it should take 2 or 3. On to the next house.
Mr. Poole, if I'm correct, if it's a straight load of brush, it doesn't go to the landfill, right? Burner pit. But if it's mixed with household garbage, it has to go to the landfill, right?
Right.
So that is therefore filling up our landfills too, when we could be burning.
Absolutely.
the wood.
Well, the other thing, my goodness, if we can do that for somebody who is, we can also do that with the builder. We can do that for a guy who has the cutting the tree business. Okay, all you guys who cut the trees, this is the rule. You've got to pick up your idea on the, and we've got to start that and get with the education because, well, let me just give you an example. And I have a piece of property in the city, and by golly, one of the tenants had 19 wheelbarrows. Oh my golly, that letter hit my mailbox, and it had the word $1,000. Ah, boy, I jumped up and ran up there, and he was already out. He said, "Miss Howell, I've hired somebody to pick all this up." And the city, so I had a long chat with the city guy, and he said, "Look, you cannot put anything out until," and I knew that the pickup was Friday. So Wednesday night, you can get ready for Friday, but that's it. There's no, that was the leeway. And everybody in the city knew that. And we need a, oh, I knew that, or now you know that, for us as well, because we are running out of land, we are buying more garbage trucks, and we're not educating our folks.
We fund Keep America Beautiful,
Absolutely.
Every year, so we should take some of that fund money and have an education flyer or whatever, to do that. I mean, should be part of that, part of this
I agree.
final result.
Chairman, go ahead, Dick.
Once whatever is in place, it's going to take time, and you drive by and you say, oh, you see it's this is not correct. Maybe by then we can have a handout. You tape it to the front door. We can't pick this up.
Exactly.
Because this is the rule now. I mean, I know that takes 5 minutes for you, but at least it's not taking you 35 minutes or half a day to pick it all up. You can let the public know, that's a start, and we'll put it in the paper, I'm sure, and all the, but I myself live in the city, and I know I probably put things out there I shouldn't have, not knowing, oh, the city picked that up, oh, okay. I didn't know certain items weren't supposed to be picked up. So you just have to let me, oh, Miss Ahern, this is not correct. Oh, okay, then I'll haul it off and take it and do whatever I need to do. But it is the lack of education, and we'll have to work on that.
Chairman, if I could add, this is rhetorical, but this is all an effort to get to a schedule. It's all an effort to save our county money and be more effective with it, more efficient. And there's some ideas that have been floated tonight. The main thing we got to do, though, is try to nail down these definitions. But, convenience centers, that's something to look at. Having dump bins, like they said, in your house permit, if you're doing that, maybe we can require them to do so. I'm not certain how that legally can be, but someone else made the suggestion, well, tied that to building permits, but also putting a sticker on each garbage can, just for education purposes, start to get the message out there. And I mean, we all recognize this is a deep problem. He said it best. It did not happen overnight, and it's going to take more than overnight to fix it. But we've got to get started, it's no doubt. The trash is everywhere. That's not all the issue. The part of the reason the trash is everywhere, or debris, is because we can't keep a good schedule.
Well, yeah, and a lot of these places that are full, the pipes are, shooting through roads that are in front of the house. That shouldn't even get there.
That's right, yeah.
It shouldn't even get there.
Right, right.
Because we don't know half the time. We got a good idea, but a lot of times we gotta go and just go ahead and pick it up and go on, because the next time we fly side.
Exactly.
But on that, not knowing, within the last month, I mean, I live right in the middle of the city. I saw a place, they moved out, and I couldn't believe how much it was, and I called out. We need to call somebody out. This is not right. This is,
And we know
but
it
somebody came and picked it up because it was, but knowing what we're trying to know, education, it just has to be education.
But if they're flipping these homes, you guys gotta have permits, building inspectors come out there, make sure everything's going good through the home and stuff and not building junk. These guys are flipping these houses so quick that, they don't have a permit to do it. is what I think a lot of is going on too.
Oh.
We did have a contractor here in town, if I said his name, everybody know it, but he went in and did this lady's bathroom. And he told her, you know, I'm gonna have to charge you to haul this off, did the shower and the commode and the sink, and, or you can put it at the road and the county will pick it up. And as she said, well, she didn't want her neighbors seeing her commode, so she paid him to take it off. And he took it to his house and set it at the road so the county could pick it up.
Right.
That's wrong.
I know.
That's theft.
But there's a lot of guys come home from work and got a side job, and when they get done, that stuff's dumped right at the evening.
Yeah.
And it's like 500 people come out and put stuff out every night, because you get it cleaned up, go back through the next day, right there it is again.
I agree.
Well, in my opinion, we have a convenience center, and it's called the landfill.
Amen.
And when a cow, we had a cow that died, and Bill said, Peg, you're gonna have to get it to the, he loaded it up, feet are sticking up, and I'm driving down the road, getting it to, and go right up to the top of the landfill. And the guy throws the chain, pulls it out. The best view in Hamblen County is on top of the landfill. But it was our responsibility.
Right.
You know, and-
There's
and-
a lot of people do that.
You got issues with the landfill too, though. Okay?
Yes.
An example is someone goes out there and owns property in this town. He shows up and he doesn't, where did this come from? It came from Mr. Hill. His driver's license says he's lived on X, Y, Z.
Ah.
Now you got an argument with him. And the landfill people even tell him, take it back, put it on the side of the road, and county pick it up.
Oh, my Lord, okay.
So there's an issue too, because that's a separate entity in Hamblen County.
But it's people just trying to make a profit of what they do,
All right.
and that's not.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah,
Hunt?
can you get your, yeah.
For me, the landfill, one problem I have is that I used to be a contractor before I went back to school, and I popped a lot of tires going out to the landfill.
It's true.
And so I really like the convenience center. I did, the experience that I had with that, that's something to consider.
I think now, depending on what you have, decides whether you go up on the top or not,
Yeah.
you know. So,
My husband and I take it, I say it.
Yep.
but I know it's getting late, so what I wanted to do was, I'm sorry, go
May
ahead.
I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Walker and I discussed this earlier today, and he came up with a brilliant idea. We need a way to get, for the landfill to be open a little bit later, maybe one day a week, maybe 2 days a week, where that people can get it out there. If they could get it in, 9 times out of 10, they would haul it themselves. Mr. Walker thought possibly that would be a good avenue for this when we discussed this earlier today.
I think by law, they have to have it, moved around, smoothed off, for lack of a better word, they have to have it done by 4:30.
Okay?
So I don't know if we'd have to work through to change that, or if it could be changed. But I think that's what the state's told them, and that's why they abide by it so strictly. So we have to have it out there by 3:45. And so that takes 45 minutes out there of the day for us. They want time to move it around, and get it like it's supposed to be, in accordance with state law, and what the direction the state does. So,
That's good information. Thank you, Mr. Poole.
but you know, the regular resident, I mean, what do you generate as a regular resident? You're not a contractor, would once a month take care of your needs?
That's a good question.
If I had once a month, took whatever I needed 2 hours to run, I believe it'd take care of me, and I think it would most people, so, you know, considerations like that would be something that we could look at. We're not trying to take anything away from people, but we're being abused, and I think it'd be easier to identify what should be put in the stuff.
Amen.
Or in the garbage cart, rather than trying to identify exactly what waste is. I can tell you several things we don't want in the garbage carts that people put in there, and that's pain. go so far, but after a point, something's gotta bite. And, I don't know how much fight we put into it, and I'm not for being hard on people, but I am for getting this thing under control like y'all was talking about. Not trying to take anything away from the residents, we want to provide service, but there's a lot of things we need to look at.
Well, the service started as just brush. They're called a brush truck for a reason. And, you know, now it's junk be gone.
That is so true.
So we've got to do something in there, whether it be charge a fee, you got to call, if you can tell us what you're going to put out, and charge them a fee to go get it.
Sorting would help us a lot. They would put the brush right here, and the bulk items right here, the garbage cart over here, and maybe, the recycle in another place. Sorting would help us a lot, because we could just get brush, take it out there and get burned. And then if we had a limit, some sort of limit on what people could put out there, we could handle a lot. But right now, the volume's so high, and we have a couple of people out, down 5 trucks, and that makes a big difference.
Right, but there's no way we need to be hauling off a contractor's mess or somebody who's a tree service. I mean, I had a tree service come out, and the guy, I told him, I said, you've got to haul that off. And he said, oh yeah, I'm supposed to haul it off. He said, I can't put it down there on the road. So they know what they're supposed to do. It's these independent guys that are making a lot of problems.
And there's another thing, there's like 500 stops in this county. You don't even have to look, you know it's there. I mean, you don't even, you can be 5 miles away. I know that, it's there. As soon as we pick it up, they have to have something for us to pick up. Every time we go up.
One of the issues and this just comes from a neighbor of mine who used to work for the EPA, and I know we've talked about paint being thrown out and toxic chemicals. And recently, I think it was Union County, we had a fella down there that, I don't know what he did, he salvaged old tractors, mostly old tractors, but other farm equipment, and probably about, I don't know, I think something like 400, 500 yards away, there was a stream. And the antifreeze and the oil and the leftover diesel fuel, gasoline, went about 400 or 500 yards and leached into that creek. And this guy the EPA is pretty serious. And so that's another thing that people have to be concerned about is when they're leaving these things, it's letting chemicals leach into the soil and it runs into the waterway. EPA catches you. I mean, it can get pretty nasty pretty quick. So I think that's something else we need to throw out to people. Listen, we'll handle it, but we got to handle it the right way, So.
I think as a commission, this is one of the most tangible services we have for our county. Everybody uses it. It's daily garbage or weekly garbage pickup. I want us to do everything we can. I hope we can do everything we can to keep it, but yet bring it in line where it's not abused. Now, no one here, I think, is advocating that we do away with bulk waste pickup. It's just making it efficient. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Just to let you guys know how we do things as far as enforcement. I enforce property maintenance regulations, I enforce zoning regulations, and I enforce stormwater regulations. When we issue a CHO, which is a customary home occupation, if it is something that does, an operation that does generate waste, we do make a point to say, you can't leave this, that to go for pre-training services, contact. When it comes to the enforcement, if I have a property maintenance issue, they get a letter. Give them 10 days to correct it, depending on how bad of it is. Mostly 10 days, get your yard mowed, get your trash out. If they don't do it, they get a second letter with another 10 days. If we get no compliance then, at that point, it's turned over to the county attorney, and he sends them a letter stating that if this does not happen, then you will be cited for it. So if we have these issues, we start seeing that this is starting to happen, we
start fining everybody, you know, that's not the way our office does that with these other regulations that we enforce. So just to let you guys know, you know, that's the way our office would go about this educational / enforcement of these regulations.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate what you do, too. So, anyone else? I know it's late. Moving forward, as I said, I just wanted to identify bulk waste and construction waste and garbage and brush so the people would know not to mix it, as you said, you know. And this may want to table this to the next month, but and reword some things and look into this a little deeper. We've had some good discussion about it tonight. You know, it's not going to be fixed next month anyway. So.
Chairman Horner?
Yes.
I have a suggestion. Maybe do so. Table this, and let's let you do a little work on the side and come up. Like you said, this was a draft, and maybe come back with a more more condensed version of these definitions. Not the whole thing's going to be taken. It's never was intended to do. It was a draft. What do you think?
I agree, and you know, it's just going to get it out there. Right. And make sure, but you know, to Tommy's point, you know, you can only tell them so many times, and as Ms. Howe says, you got to buy it. So, but I do think.
So
make a motion that we table it.
Or
if I need a motion to table.
I'll make that motion to table it.
And we have a second.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. All opposed? That's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Horner. We'll move now to calendar and rules. Chairman Doty, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any visitors wishing to address the Calendar and Rules Committee about agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Old business, we have none. New business, we have the review of the regular calendar items, and we have some changes to make. Mayor, if you could, I'm gonna need a little guidance here. Mayor Britton. Barry, I need a guidance from Bill real quick. Do we need to add the Lincoln Elementary vote that we did to the regular calendar?
Technically, there wasn't a vote needed.
It was just, that was my thought as well. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, in Finance Committee, under the Health Department purchase agreement, we want to add the language of giving the county first right of refusal on purchasing it back if it's ever sold. And that is under 9A. In the Public Services Committee, had the Urban Growth Plan amendment, and it was voted to send that to commission for ratification. In the Rules Review Committee, the rules for contracts stated as the information rule, changed to be voted on. And not knowing where to add it, except probably where the bulk waste was, we have the vote to add the third courtroom addition and additional office space in the Justice Center Public Safety Committee as an item. Do we have to have a public hearing?
We don't.
I didn't think so.
We've already had that, I think.
It's just ratification.
All that's done, yes.
That was my thought too. Thank you, Mayor.
Where are we going to add the,
I would say add it in item 12, because that one was removed due to going to bring it back next month, and add Justice Center Public Safety Committee there, and make it item 12A, which will be the finishing out of the third courtroom and the additional office space. And can I get a motion? on that?
Motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Richardson, and then second, Mr. Horner. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And then motion passed. And then we have the review of consent calendar items. Can I get that, a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Richardson.
Second.
Second, Mr. Horner. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Chairman Doty of County Rules. Any other business before the body?
Supper.
All minds clear? We are adjourned.
You tell